Strange Brew Podcast, Season 1, Episode 331. The third quarter of the Denver Bronco game where the Packers had a 23-14 lead at the ball feels like it was about a decade ago. In a game on Saturday where the NFC North was still very much in play. We talked about that on the podcast heading into the weekend. 2 wins, 2 Bears losses. Bears strength of schedule. They've got to go to San Fran. A classic, by the way, last night. We can talk more about that when we make our lap through the NFL, but what a game that was. And the Bears lost. So you could have been, had you put any defensive effort into this game, you could have been a win and a Bears loss away from an NFC North championship this coming weekend and maybe a 2 seed or maybe a 3 seed. And with that on the table, one of the most lackluster defensive efforts I've seen in the Mike Pettin era, in the Joe Barry era, and definitely in the Jeff Hafley era with that run defense on Saturday night. In the words of the hockey coach from Letterkenny, it was embarrassing and then some. A 41-24, what ends up being a rout at Lambeau Field Saturday night. No Lamar Jackson, and the Ravens offense just had their way with the Packer front seven. They couldn't stop him. Couldn't stop King Henry. Couldn't stop any of the running attack as the Packers fall 41-24. They are 9-6-1. They are now locked up as the number 7 seed come playoff time, 3rd year in a row for that. And the Bears, because of that loss, and even with the Bear loss last night, they are, for the first time since 2018, the NFC North champions. So just an ugly effort all the way around. And yeah, the month of December has been woof. Buzz, your girlfriend, woof. We'll talk about the Bucs. Hey, Giannis came back. That was unexpected over the weekend. I did not think we would see him back for a couple of weeks. We did talk on the last podcast about how he was practicing again. Light practice it looked like, but they ramped it up quickly. He was back on the floor Saturday in Chicago, a game they really needed to get, and they did. And then Giannis with maybe a villain turn has come now. A dunk at the end of that game, a windmill dunk when the game had been decided. That led to a little kerfuffle at the end of that game as well, and maybe a tone being set by Giannis for the remainder of the year in his post-game comments as well. They're in Charlotte tonight. We'll talk about that too, and a little college football playoffs as well. Let's go.
On the ground, a chance here. Durham to Hardy to first. Hit time! Yes! The Brewers win! Yes!
Here comes Melvin to the 25, to the 20, Gordon 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Wisconsin, record-breaking run.
Morgan, a smash up the middle, face into center. Here comes Gomez, around third, a throw, and the Brewers win.
Here's the snap. He looks, he throws, it's incomplete interception. And there is your Super Bowl dagger.
Booker the drive, gets inside, leans in, knocked away and stolen by Holiday. Phoenix has to foul on a pinnacle ball, throws it down. Swinging fly ball in the right center. Broxton is there, and they're the champions. They have done it. It's been a 50-year journey. Wisconsin, we've got a room at the top of the world tonight. The Milwaukee Bucks are NBA champions.
Yeah, welcome in. Monday morning, we are back in the office here today, back in the studio today after a week off last week, doing the 2 podcasts, but the week off from the morning show last week. I did have to laugh and cry a little bit as I got back into work today. First of all, winter storm warning the first day we're back. Not a lot of snow accumulation, but the wind was whipping out there, wind advisories and all that kind of stuff to start your Monday. And then I got to the building, and I walk into the break room. And I actually did a little video on the On Air John Team B93 Facebook page about this. So, week off, it was nice. I got to sleep a little bit, and family and friends, and the get-togethers, the fart ninjas. We recapped all of that on the Friday podcast. It was nice. It was a nice week, burning some vacation days, use it or lose it. I guess I'm going to lose 1.5 vacation days anyway. That was a nice rude awakening this morning. So I came in this morning, and the first thing I learned was I'm still going to lose 1.33 vacation days, which whatever, I guess. It's been worse. So I am going to lose that after that whole thing I went on, that whole rant I went on about never losing your vacation days. So I just didn't do math right. It's not that I didn't want to use them. It's that I'm a dummy. I didn't do math right. So I learned that early this morning, coming in the snow this morning. And then I go to the break room, and I forgot that I haven't been here since the Packer-Bear game. So we have, as I mentioned in the video that we posted, and I've said this before on the podcast, we've got Bears fans in the building. We've got a lot of fans in the building. We've got a Viking fan. We've got a couple of Bears fans. We've got a Dolphins fan now. And even he said, when he introduced himself, a new sales guy, and we were chopping it up about football a little bit, he said, I'm a Dolphins fan. And even he kind of said it with no oomph behind it at all. There was nothing there. He wasn't really excited about it. So we got a Dolphins fan in the building. But we do have a few Bears fans in the building, and one of them is a longtime sales guy in the building. We will call him Casey. That is his legal name. The name has not been protected. The name has not been redacted to protect the innocent. But he's been a sales guy here, I think, since my second year in the building, which goes back to 2008 now or 2009. Great guy. But a Bears fan. And so we've got Bears fans that roam around the building. We've tried to call all sorts of pest control, different people, different companies in Sheboygan County to get us out of here, to get them eradicated, but they keep on showing up. So he's a diehard. I mean, he lives and dies with it. And we know, as we've been over, which we talked about after the Bear loss, that franchise in the last 40-ish years has not seen a lot of good times. A couple here and there. The Super Bowl run in 2006. They've had, I think, a handful of division titles in there. They had a 13-win year in the early 2000s. I mean, there's been a little bit of stuff in there, but not a whole heck of a lot. Devin Hester, who can forget Devin Hester? But they haven't had a lot to cheer about. So it's the first time after the Packers lost on Saturday. It is the first time that the Bears have been division champions since 2018, which, as a side note, ended with the double doink. So let's all hope that this goes in the exact same direction that it did the last time that they won a division title. That ended with the infamous double doink against the Eagles at Soldier Field in 2018. But it's been 7 years. So I walk into the break room, and what do I see? Something that makes me very excited. Cookies. Cookies are in the break room. Who doesn't love it when there's cookies in the break room? So I went over there, and right next to the cookie packages, I saw a bunch of plates to put your cookies on that said, Happy Holidays or Merry Christmas from the Chicago Bears. There was the Bear logo and the Santa Claus logo. And I said to myself, I felt like Oscar in The Office. You know that episode where Oscar gets the free paid leave for 6 months or whatever? And he comes back and he walks into the office and there's all kinds of chaos. I think there's a Christmas party going on. It's a mess. And he walks in and takes 2 steps in, and he says, not yet. And he just leaves again. I'm not ready yet. And he just leaves again. He walks right in and right out the door like Abe Simpson. That's how I felt like things were going for me here this morning when I saw that. I'm going to eat the cookies. You know, it is kind of a trap because I know he put those in there, and I feel like I'm not turning down a free cookie, but I feel like if I eat these cookies, in a weird way, I am helping him celebrate a Bears division championship and all the Packer failings of the past month. I ate them. I didn't love it, but I ate them. So that's what I kind of walked into here this morning as we are getting set for another non-victory Monday podcast in what has been an abysmal month of Packer football since that third quarter against the Broncos and losing that lead and Watson going down and Parsons out for the year and all the injuries. Then we relived the 2014 NFC Championship game against the Bears a week and a half ago. And then we relived a Joe Barry defense this weekend with the Ravens at Lambeau Field. Real quick before we hop into it, I've got emails we've got to get to. Malik Willis played great, so as you would expect, there are a handful of emails about Malik Willis. I'm not going to read them all. I think we've got 7 of them, but I'm going to read one of them, so just so we at least cover our base there, because that really should have been the storyline coming out of Saturday, how amazing Malik Willis was in yet another instance of him getting the start when Love can't go and him fulfilling that backup role and then some and making himself a ton of money on Saturday night. That should have been the storyline, but that's not the storyline. But before we get into all that, I do want to just take you down memory lane here because on this day in history, and we talked about it coming out of the loss to the Bears, how that is now their Randall Cobb game. The fact that they came back the way they did, the botched onside kick, the walk-off winner from Williams to DJ Moore, that is their Rodgers to Cobb 2013 de facto NFC North Championship game. Well, it just so happens that 12 years ago, that was the Rodgers to Cobb walk-off winner at Soldier Field. So before we get into the minutia about what this team did Saturday at Lambeau Field against a Ravens team without Lamar Jackson, let's just relive this moment 12 years ago today.
Well, this is it, Rock, the season. Right here on this 4th down play. How many times have we said that on this drive? Rodgers in the shotgun, 3 receivers left, 1 to the right.
Packers need at least 7 yards to move the chains. Rodgers gets the snap. Blitz is on. Rodgers scrambles left, winds up Rainbow. He's got Cobb at the 10 to the 5 to the end zone. Touchdown and a dagger. Oh my goodness. An NFC North Division championship dagger of 47 yards.
Inject it directly into my veins. Just hook it into my veins. That is one of the all-time McCarron.
How many times have we said that on this drive? Rodgers in the shotgun. 3 receivers left, 1 to the right. Packers need at least 7 yards to move the chains. Rodgers gets the snap. Blitz is on. Rodgers scrambles left, winds up Rainbow. He's got Cobb at the 10 to the 5 to the end zone. Touchdown and a dagger. Oh my goodness. An NFC North Division championship dagger of 47 yards.
I know we've talked about it. I still say that is one of the boldest dagger calls of all time, given the time left, given the Bears had timeouts left, given you don't get the 2-point conversion, right? So what is the score then at that point? 33-28, touchdown wins it. 40 seconds left and 2 timeouts, and even back then the Packers special teams were not all that good. You figure they were probably going to get some kind of decent field position there. That was a bold dagger call by Larry, but it paid off. That was 12 years ago this day in history. So let's talk about it. The Ravens in town Saturday night. Now, I will hand up. It felt to me, based on everything I was hearing and some of the reporters that I do know that actually go up to Green Bay and cover the team, the feeling was heading into Saturday that Jordan Love was going to play in this game, that he was going to get out of concussion protocol and play in this game. And then, was it Friday then, or was it Saturday early in the day? Maybe it was Friday night already where they said he is not going to get out of concussion protocol. It wasn't the Billy Bob in Varsity Blues. What does he ask him? True, false? How many fingers am I holding up? You got to ask him true or false. Is he holding up fingers, true or false? It wasn't that concussion test. They are much more rigorous than that, and he did not get out of concussion protocol. I did read, even though we felt like on the Friday podcast that he was going to play, I did read somewhere that the amount of quarterbacks, since they've really made this a point of emphasis, the amount of quarterbacks that get concussed one week and are back right away the following week is a very low percentage. It's only a handful of quarterbacks that have done that in the past 4 or 5 years. But it did kind of feel like we were on our way to Jordan Love coming back on Saturday. Then the news broke that he's not. Malik Willis is going to get the start. And we can talk about Willis. You want to talk about it right now? Let's talk about it right now. Malik Willis got the start. And once again, when Love either hasn't been able to go or he has been knocked out mid-game, Malik Willis was tremendous on Saturday night, which leads to...
You got mail.
Okay, there are, like I said, there's more than one.
You got mail.
As expected. I've kind of become the post board, I think, for the people who don't like Jordan Love, who don't think he's the guy still, and who want Malik Willis now to be the guy. I feel like I've become the post for that. So this is from Gavin in Sheboygan. Gavin said, and this was written on Saturday night, by the way. You know, I can see the timestamps on these. This was Saturday night. Gavin said, if you don't see what the Packers have in Willis, then you don't have eyes, which I've said about other people. He's using my own words against me. You talk about questions around Willis's accuracy if he has to throw more, which we did talk about, comma, all caps. Past that test, J-Bone. Some people call me J-Bone on the text line. I think Love is fine, but Willis looks special, Mike Vick-esque, if you ask me. That's the email from Gavin and Sheboygan. I did see the Mike Vick comparison getting thrown around a lot. Look, I get it. He is an exciting player. I did see somebody that I thought really hit the nail on the head as it relates to Malik Willis, because you're always going to have, look, Malik's good. We talked about that. I admit Malik Willis is a good quarterback. The Packers have 2 good quarterbacks. That is not a bad thing. We don't have to talk about them and degrade one of them to make the other sound better. They have 2 good quarterbacks. Jordan Love is a good quarterback. Malik Willis is a good quarterback. Malik Willis is the best backup quarterback in the league, and he is going to get a chance. And he made himself a boatload of money and has already, but then this is kind of the cherry on top of the money sundae, what he was able to do on Saturday, which might be, when you look back to last year, the wins against Tennessee and Indy when Love couldn't play, when he came in against Jacksonville, led them to a win there. When you look at the times he's had to come in this year, that might be his opus. That might be his masterpiece as a Packer backup quarterback, what he was able to do. He had the team on his back. The only reason the Packers were in that game on Saturday was because of Malik Willis. And I did see the Mike Vick comparison getting tossed around, but the one post I saw was somebody that said something to the effect of, Jordan Love, I think, is the better quarterback, but Malik Willis is by far the more exciting quarterback to watch. That was the gist of the take. Love is the better quarterback at the end of the day, but Willis's games are just more fun and more exciting as a viewer, as a consumer of football, as a product. And I can't say I don't disagree with that, because like we talked about, Willis does give you that added element of being better when the pocket collapses, knowing when to escape, being able to have that as a part of his arsenal, as a part of his artillery. Love doesn't necessarily have that, as we've been over many times. When he has to scramble, he looks like a newborn baby calf trying to walk for the first time. Not to say it's ineffective, but everything about Willis when he gets outside the pocket is aesthetically pleasing, and he does. He does kind of look like Mike Vick when he gets loose, when he gets outside the pocket, when he runs around a guy, when he jukes inside and outside and 360s his way around somebody and picks up an extra 10 yards. He does have that element to his game that Love just does not have. And because of that, and because of how good he was throwing the ball, which Gavin is correct about on Saturday, and we talked about, I think it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago, or it must have been coming out of the Bear game, we talked about how Willis is going to get his chance, but I said it's fair to wonder that in an offense that is predicated primarily on Malik Willis, and there's no ambiguity, he's the guy for 16 games, 17 games, and the entire game plan is formulated around his skill set. I said it's fair to wonder how he is going to look when he has to pass 20-plus times in a game, 25-plus times in a game, because you're not going to be able to survive. I don't think, now maybe I'm totally wrong here, but I don't think you're going to be able to survive if Malik Willis is your starting quarterback next year in an offense where a quarterback is only throwing 14, 15 times, which is what we've seen from Willis when he won the 2 games last year as a starter, when he came in against Jacksonville, when he played against Chicago last week. They went to almost a 2-to-1 run-to-pass ratio. And I want to say, going back to specifically the Colts and the Titans games last year, he maybe threw 15 times, but no more than 15 times to either of those games. And in the modern NFL, you're going to have to throw 20 to 25 times a game minimum. And I would think 25-plus times a game if you're really going to see some success. So it's a valid question about Malik Willis. How is that going to look when he is the guy and he has to throw a ton more than he has in these mop-up appearances or in these fill-in appearances in Green Bay? Now, he did throw 21 times, and he completed 18 of them, so that's pretty efficient. And I have to say, the zip he has on the ball, I mean, he was right on the money pretty much the entirety of the game. In fact, I think of the 3 incompletes, I believe 2 of them were just straight-up drops. He might have only had 1 pass on Saturday that was just an errant throw, that was an inaccurate throw. So, Gavin, I concede that we talked about it's fair to wonder whether or not he can do it in a 1 game where he threw 20-plus times. He threw 21 times on Saturday. It was very impressive. 18 of 21. He accounts for 348 total yards, 288 through the air, 60 on the ground, and 3 total touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, and the touchdown pass to Christian Watson in the first quarter. He was tremendous. No notes. There's that scene in New Girl where they say, no notes, no notes, no notes. The only thing that you could say, and I don't think it was on him, that he messed up in that game was when they had the audible he was trying to call. Was that first quarter? He was trying to call an audible, and Sean Ryan just snapped the ball and hit him right in the face. It was a headshot right to the dome, and that was a turnover, and it ends up being kind of a big turnover, but I don't know how much of that was on Malik Willis. So when you look at the totality of his game, 18 of 21, 288, 1 touchdown passing, 2 touchdowns rushing, 60 yards rushing, quarterback rating of 134.6, and a QBR of 94.5. And as we said, he is the only reason the Packers were even in this game and only down 3 in the fourth quarter. When you look at his 2 years now in Green Bay, it is astounding. So now he has, when you go back to last year and this year, so last year, didn't throw a ton, but completed 74% of his passes last year. He has completed 85% of his passes. These are not sustainable numbers. 30 of 35 this year. 3 touchdowns, no picks last year. 3 touchdowns, no picks this year. So in his time in Green Bay, 6 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. He rushed for 138 yards last year, 7 yards a clip. He has rushed for 123 this year, almost 6 yards a clip. 3 total touchdowns on the ground. Last year, his quarterback rating was 124.8. This year, his quarterback rating in 4 games is 144.4 to QBR of 93.5. He was awesome. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say. He is a good quarterback. He is going to make a lot of money next year somewhere. It's not going to be in Green Bay. I hate to tell you, if you are somebody that truly believes that Malik Willis is the guy and you would prefer to move forward with him as your starting quarterback as opposed to Jordan Love, it's just not going to happen. I know the argument is, trade Jordan Love and then sign Willis. It's not going to happen, okay? There is no real world where that scenario exists. In the Choose Your Own Adventure book, there is no page to turn to where that is a realistic possibility. Malik Willis is going to be a quarterback on a different team next year, and Jordan Love is going to continue on as the franchise quarterback for the Packers. And I stand by what we said a few weeks ago or a week ago. I still think at the end of the day, if all things are equal, I think Jordan Love is a guy who can lead you to a 12 or 13 win year and be in the MVP conversation, which, as a side note, was happening. We were living in that world less than 3 weeks ago. I think that is his ceiling. I think Malik Willis, as good as he's been, I think his ceiling when he's the guy over a 17-game schedule is leading a team to an 8-9, a 9-8 record, maybe a 10-7 record, and a shot at a wild card. That's where I believe their two ceilings to be. Now, look, I have to admit, the more we see of Malik Willis, the more I wonder about that, the more I wonder if he could be a guy that could lead you to 11 or 12 wins and a division title. And it's entirely possible he signs somewhere next year. I don't know where he's going to end up going, whether it's going to be the Raiders as a transition quarterback or the Browns maybe. God forbid he ends up in Minnesota. I do think that's a possibility, though. But wherever he ends up, maybe over the course of 17 games, he's a guy with a quarterback rating of 110, and he leads a team to 13 wins and a division title, and Jordan Love falls off, and then we're really going to see the Packer world crumble if that happens next year. But I do think the more we see him play, the more optimistic I am on the high side of what I would think his ceiling is of leading a team to a 9-8 record, a 10-7 record, a playoff spot, maybe vying for a division title in the correct division. But he just continues to impress every time he gets the ball. He was impressive in the postgame, too, talking about how he didn't get many reps during the week because they were trying to see if Jordan Love could get past concussion protocol. So Love was getting all the number one reps. I guess Malik Willis, like a lot of the team, was under the weather this week. So because of that, he didn't get a lot of number one reps. So he didn't have a lot of practice time leading into Saturday. And then to accomplish what he accomplished is very impressive. But I knew as soon as I opened that email up, I knew there were going to be more than a few emails about how Malik Willis should be the guy going forward. That's just not going to happen. I don't know what he's going to get. And I do wonder, we talked about this, I think, on the HBL morning show. I have sort of stood by what I thought was an 80-20 or a 75-25 split among Packer fans, where 75 to 80% of Packer fans believe in Jordan Love, understand he's the franchise quarterback, think he has a ceiling of a division title team and a deep run in the playoffs and maybe an MVP, being top 3, being top 5 MVP. I believe 75 to 80% of Packer fans believe that. I believe a very loud 15 to 20% just think Jordan Love stinks. I don't know how you can, I still don't understand how you could land there. I guess I can sort of understand the more we see Malik Willis. I can sort of understand the argument of Willis should be the guy and not Love. But the fact that that fan base just out and out says Love stinks, like that Love is bad, we can all agree on that if we have a rational brain, right? That maybe he's not as good as I'm making him out to be, but he is a good quarterback. Can we all agree on that? I think that's where, with that group of fans, I think that's where I tune them out a little bit, because he doesn't stink. There's just no world where that's true. He has 23 touchdowns and 6 picks this year. He was top 5, top 3 MVP betting by going into Denver, and by halftime of the Denver game where he was tearing things up in the first half, he was probably top 3 or top 2 MVP candidate. But he doesn't stink. I think that's where they lose me. I think that's where that part of the fan base loses me by saying, oh, Jordan Love is not only is he not a franchise quarterback, he's a bad quarterback. Objectively, he is not a bad quarterback. He is a very good quarterback. But Malik Willis looks like a very good quarterback. So I do wonder, where I was thinking it's an 80-20 split, I do wonder the more we see of Willis and you see him perform the way he did Saturday, I do wonder if that gap is narrowing. I wonder if it's more 75-25, more 70-30. Are we in a 65-35 range now? It does feel like he is making more and more believers out there the way he plays when he gets on the field, because that should have been the storyline coming out of Saturday, how impressive he was, how he led them to a win. He put up these eye-popping numbers, but unfortunately for Malik Willis and all the people that want Malik Willis to take Jordan Love's job, The storyline coming out of Saturday wasn't so much that as it ends up being a dismal effort by a defensive unit that in the Jeff Hafley era, and we are in year 2 of Hafley, it has been very encouraging. I think we've all been very happy with the Hafley era. How could you not be? Last year they were a fringe top 5 or right at number 5 in the NFL in total defense. I think they were number 6 in terms of points given up. You get Micah Parsons. He kind of puts you over the top. They're a top 5 defense this year with Micah Parsons, and I think top 5 or 6 in terms of points given up per game. And you're right in that realm again, and then Parsons goes down, and they've got a lot of other injuries besides that too. But that was a demoralizing effort, I would say, from this team on Saturday night, because you knew going into the game, no Lamar Jackson. Tyler Huntley, the backup quarterback, got the start. We talked about that Friday. He is also one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league, but you knew they weren't going to throw the ball 30 times on Saturday night. You knew they wanted to get the ball to, with Lamar gone, their go-to player, their running back, Derrick Henry, who has been awesome there, and he was awesome in Tennessee. And he's sort of bucking that trend of when a running back gets to 30 years old, or is he a little past 30 years old? Once you get past that, typically that's where you see performance start to fall off, but that has not been the case with Derrick Henry. And that's even more surprising because he's such a big back, you would think, with the wear and tear on his body, the amount of contact that he absorbs and has absorbed in his career, you would think he'd fall directly into that falling off a cliff after you turn 30 years old barrier for running backs, but he has only gotten better in Baltimore. But you knew without Lamar Jackson, they're going to give the ball to Derrick Henry over and over and over again until you prove you can stop it, and the Packers couldn't stop it all night. Now, I understand, as we just talked about the injuries, and we can go over some of this too if you want to. I think Cheesehead TV had a list at the end of the game on Saturday of all of these significant injuries the Packers have had to deal with this year. A lot of them are on the defensive side. A lot of them are on the front seven. When you think about Parsons is out for the year, Devontae Wyatt's out for the year. They've had a lot of guys go down on that front seven, and that's where you are defending the run. Those guys are the first line of defense against a good running attack. So I understand that not everybody's going to be able to come up and fill that gap and be as good as Micah Parsons or as decent as Devontae Wyatt. I get it. There's a reason these guys are backups. I always do kind of get into it with, or at least I guess philosophically have a difference of opinion with everybody that says no excuses, play like a champion, next man up. And you're going to hear teams say that, of course, when guys go down. You want to keep morale up and you say next man up. The next guy has to do what that previous guy did. I understand the philosophy and the mentality behind that. But as we've talked about on this podcast, and I know we've talked about on the morning show, if the second and third stringers were as good as Micah Parsons or Devontae Wyatt, they'd be off making $170 million elsewhere. There's a reason these guys are second or third string. There's a reason these guys are on the practice squad. And to expect them to be as good as Wyatt and Micah Parsons and some of the guys that have gone down is unrealistic. That being said, the effort they gave on Saturday was one of the worst we've seen in a long, long time, especially given what we just talked about. You knew they were going to run the ball. And it wasn't just the sheer numbers that Henry put up and that offense put up. There were so many times where Derrick Henry was untouched for 6 yards, 5, 6, 7 yards before anybody got a hand on him. And that, to me, was the most disappointing part of Saturday. I get the injuries. I get the backups. I also get that there was apparently an illness or a flu bug or something that was running rampant through the Packer locker room as well. So maybe not everybody was feeling 100%, even the guys that were out there. I understand all of that, and I'm baking that all into the cake. You still have to be better than that. You have to be. When you know that's what they're going to do and you're loading up the box, it just didn't feel like they were willing tacklers. It didn't feel like the Packers really wanted that game for whatever reason. And it just doesn't make sense to have that kind of an effort when you still had a lot on the line Saturday night. So Derrick Henry ends up going for, 116 or 216 yards? I wish it was 116. He goes for 216 yards, a record for an opposing running back or an opposing player at Lambeau Field. 6 yards a carry on 36 carries. Derrick Henry's stats look like Ron Dane or Melvin Gordon or whatever, some Badger running back from the late 90s, early 2000s. 36 carries, 216, 6 yards a carry, 4 touchdowns. As a team, the Ravens go 53 carries for 307 yards, 5.8 yards a carry, and 4 touchdowns, all of those belonging to Derrick Henry on the day. And Tyler Huntley didn't have to do a whole lot. He was fine, though, 16 of 20, 107 yards and a touchdown. He was efficient enough, but it's just frustrating when you know without Lamar, they're going to run and run and run and run. And the Packers just were unwilling or unable to stop it. That was the most frustrating part, I think, of Saturday night in a 41-24 loss. So, yeah, Derrick Henry sets a record. That is the most rushing yards by an opposing player at Lambeau Field. It's also only the third time since 1984, my birth year. Third time since 84, the Packers have given up 40-plus points at Lambeau Field. Just an atrocious effort on every level from a defense that so far, in the 2 years, now almost down to the end of year 2 with Hafley, so far it's been a really nice run. And as we talked about a few podcasts ago, it kind of finally feels like you have something in Hafley. Now, there is the spin zone of, if they continue to perform poorly at the end of the year, maybe Jeff Hafley isn't going to become a head coach somewhere. So if you are of the opinion that you want Jeff Hafley to stay as the defensive coordinator in Green Bay, the last few weeks have gone a long way to maybe keeping him in Green Bay, because as they've performed this way now for a couple of weeks, I mean, the Chicago game wasn't so bad, but Saturday was really bad and disjointed. If they continue to look like that in Minnesota this week and in the playoffs, in the wild card round, whether it's now in Philly or in Chicago, if they continue to look like that, maybe Hafley all of a sudden isn't one of the hottest names out there to become a future coach. But coming out of Saturday, that's the storyline. You wanted it to be Malik Willis. You wanted it to be a Packer win that keeps them alive in the division. But ultimately, the run defense was so putrid, that becomes the storyline. That becomes topic A, B, and C coming out of a disgusting 41-24 loss Saturday night at Lambeau Field. So you got to find a way to fix this. We'll play the SNL clip I always play. You got to find, hopefully this is Jeff Hafley today.
But how do we go about fixing it specifically?
Take it one step at a time. Identify the problem. Fix it. Identify another problem. Fix it. Repeat as necessary until it's all fixed.
It's really simple when you put it down.
How do we go about fixing it specifically?
Take it one step at a time. Identify the problem. Fix it.
Done.
Identify another problem. Fix it. Repeat as necessary until it's all fixed.
So we'll see if they can do that coming out of a very disappointing loss Saturday night. You want to take a lap around the box score? Like we talked about, Malik Willis was awesome. 18 of 21, 288 and a touchdown, quarterback rating 134.6, QBR of 94.5. He also led them in rushing, 9 carries, 60 yards. Beyond that, I guess I don't really know. Maybe it was game script-wise. It seemed like beyond Willis on designed run-pass options, on designed inside handoffs where he breaks outside, other than that, there was no real commitment to just handing the ball to a running back. Josh Jacobs, who is still battling that knee injury, he was awful. 4 carries, that's it. 4 carries, 3 yards. That was it from Josh Jacobs. Emmanuel Wilson had 3 for 16, but again, outside of Wilson doing things on his own, it felt like there was no running game to speak of. 17 carries, 79 yards. I guess 4.6 yards a carry, not terrible, but again, that's all Willis, and the 2 touchdowns were Malik Willis's touchdowns. Otherwise, what else in the passing game? Clayton Tune did get in the game. So they elevated Clayton Tune, which we talked about on Friday. If they elevate him, that'll show you whether or not they feel confident that Love or Willis or both are going to be out there. At that point, clearly he was elevated because Love did not get out of concussion protocol. Now, Clayton Tune did get in the game. Malik Willis left the game late third quarter. That's when it was it still a 3-point game at that point? And the Packers had the ball, or maybe they were down. Were they down 10 at that point? I forget when he left. But remember, Willis threw that one pass, and it was the only incomplete pass, I would say, that was on him. As we talked about, the other 2 were pretty much straight-up drops. They must have been... Were they only down 3 when they had that pick from Clayton Tune? And that interception, by the way, was not even on Clayton Tune. Touchdown to get 27-24. Oh, they were down by 10. They were down 34-24, and they were driving to try to get back within a possession. And then Willis had that throw where he immediately grabbed his shoulder, which he hurt at the end of the game against Chicago. And then he ran to the locker room, and about 5 minutes later, he ran back out there. And I guess Matt LaFleur said he could have gotten back into the game if they felt like it was still a game, but by the time he ran back out onto the field, they were down a couple of touchdowns. There were only a few minutes left in the game anyway, 4 or 5 minutes left in the game, and Clayton Tune just finished it. But it is pretty obvious that he just got shot up with Toradol, right? That's what happened. It was funny to me in the postgame with Malik Willis. They asked him what happened to his shoulder when he left the game, and he said, I just tweaked something. And then somebody said to him or asked him, what did they do in the locker room? And he said, they just checked me out and said I'm good to go. And then somebody followed up and specifically asked, did you get any kind of pain injection or any kind of anything for the pain when you were in there? And he just looked at him and said, yeah, they checked me out and they said I was good to go. So clearly didn't want to admit to, I would guess, what was likely to be a pregame Toradol injection that wore off. and that's why he started to feel that pain after that throw, and then he went into the locker room, got another injection, and came out, and it sounded like he was good to go after that. So, yeah, I'm assuming he got some kind of pain injection, the Aaron Rodgers Percocet, something like that, some kind of Brett Favre cocktail that would have had him back on the field had it been a one-possession game. I just thought it was funny, the cat and mouse in the postgame of, well, what did they do to you in the locker room? They checked me out and said I was fine. But did you get anything, Malik? Did you get anything to make you feel better? You know, he said, no, they just checked me out and said I was fine. Receiving-wise, Christian Watson had a really nice night as he continues to elevate his game to being a legit number one receiver in the NFL. 5 catches, 113 yards, had that touchdown catch early. Romeo Doubs, pretty good, 3 for 62. Jaden Reed, 4 for 41. Bo Melton had 1 for 34, but he also had the drop on the Clayton Tune pass that was intercepted again. Clayton Tune gets it on that drive, and at that point, you're in field goal range. So if you don't turn the ball over, you're probably down, 34-27? Now we know the defense probably was not going to stop Baltimore for the remainder of the night, but in theory, if you just wouldn't have gained a yard there, you probably kick a deep field goal and you're down by 7, and at least you can convince yourself we're within one possession. This is a one-possession game at 34-27, but Clayton Tune was intercepted. That went right off the hands of Bo Melton. Should have been an easy catch, was not. He had 1 for 34, though, got that reception from Malik Willis. Matthew Golden, I don't know what to make of what's going on with Matthew Golden. He had 1 catch for 12 yards. He just seems to not be involved in the week-to-week offensive game plan. I don't know, and nobody's really asked Matt LaFleur, is it that Matthew Golden just isn't winning his one-on-one battles? He isn't running precise routes? Is it on Matthew Golden that he's not involved, or is it on Matt LaFleur and the offensive game plan for not getting him involved? I guess most of what we see on Twitter is, how can you not be getting Matthew Golden the ball more? How is he not more involved in the offense? Well, the answer could be, from Matt LaFleur's perspective, he's not running the right routes, he's not running crisp routes, and until he does that, or is a willing blocker, or whatever, he is not going to be involved in the passing game. So I would want that question answered, but it's pretty hard to say year one of Matthew Golden has not been a bust. I'm not saying he's a bust. I think, as we learned with Davante Adams, and he will be a cautionary tale for the rest of my life as it relates to writing off a wide receiver too early, because Davante's rookie year wasn't good. Davante's second year really wasn't all that good. People wanted him cut. People wanted him traded. And year 3, he broke out, and now he's on track to be a Hall of Fame player. Probably is a Hall of Fame player at the NFL level. But because of that, I am not willing to write off a receiver after 1 year. But if you just look at the rookie year of Matthew Golden, you just look at that in a vacuum, it's hard to call it anything other than a bust at this point, right? 1 catch for 12 yards and only had 1 other target. He's got 28 catches for 353 yards, no touchdowns on the year. And it just doesn't feel like he's involved. But again, somebody would have to specifically ask Matt LaFleur, is he not involved, or can you get him more involved, or is he not involved because he's just not getting open? He's not winning his one-on-one battles. Only LaFleur can answer that. What else receiving-wise? Chris Brooks had 1 for 11, Wiley 1 for 8, Wilson 1 for 8, and Dontavian Wicks 1 for 7. He left the game, concussion, and did not return. Yeah, Malik Willis had the fumble. Defensively, just a bummer of a game. McKinney had 13 tackles. Quay Walker had 12 tackles and a sack. Edgerrin Cooper had 10 tackles. But otherwise, not much. The only sack of the night was Quay Walker. Carrington Valentine, not good. He was benched, but then Haddon went down with that horrific leg injury that's going to cost him his year, more injuries toward the end of the game. Carrington Valentine, I think, is a decent cover corner. The knock on Valentine his whole career is that he is not a good tackler. It doesn't appear that he's a willing tackler, and we saw more of that on Saturday. I will, I guess, concede this. If I saw, I'm not Carrington Valentine, but if I saw Derrick Henry, all 260 pounds of Derrick Henry running at me, I'm not sure how much of a willing tackler I would be either. But that has been a knock on Carrington Valentine his entire career, which is what now, year 3 or year 4? He was a 7th rounder in 2023. So this is year 3. He had a couple of picks last year. He was not getting playing time early this year, but then has started to get more playing time. I don't think he's a bad cover corner for the most part. Look, in the modern NFL, even the best corners in the league are going to get beat. He gets beat from time to time. Overall, I want to say his coverage is decent enough, but he just does not tackle on the boundary, and we saw more of that. Now, he got benched, But then Haddon, who would have been his replacement, he goes down less than a quarter later with the bad leg injury his season is done. So Valentine's right back in there. That was ugly on Saturday, Valentine's tackling. The other name you're going to hear called out specifically on this Packer defense is Rashawn Gary. I just think it's over. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I feel bad. I think he's trying. I really do. I think he's trying. I think the ACL injury he suffered in 2022 just set his career back. He has never been the same player, really, in terms of explosiveness or chasing down a quarterback. That really undermined his career. In 2021, so Gary, was he a top 10 pick? I think he was. He was the 12th overall pick in 2019. And the thing about him coming out of Michigan was he did not put up big sacks at Michigan, but his combine heading into the 2019 draft, where he put up one of the best 40 times for a defensive end or an edge rusher. All of the measurables, the strength, the speed, that's why they drafted him. And he's been solid. I wouldn't say he's even a Packer Hall of Famer, but he's been solid. A quiet first year in 2019. That's because Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith came in and they were your two guys. He was better in 2020. And then 2021 and the first part of 2022, I would say that's really the best of Rashawn Gary's career. On that 2021 defense, which wasn't terrible, that was, I think, a Mike Pettin defense. He was in that divisional round game against the Niners. So they lost to Brady and the Buccaneers the year prior in the NFC title game. And then the next year, they were the 1 seed again, and Rodgers won the MVP again. And they had home field, and it was that snowy divisional round game against the Niners where the special teams cost him a blocked field goal, a blocked punt return for a touchdown in a game you lose by 3. That was probably the best defensive effort in a playoff game in the Rodgers era, and they lost. And Rashawn Gary in that game against the Niners was a menace. And that year he had 9.5 sacks. He has never had double-digit sack totals. That was the closest he came. He had 47 tackles that year, 9.5 sacks, couple of forced fumbles, a fumble recovery. He was an impactful player on that defense, and especially in that game, again, what I think is maybe the best defensive performance in a Rodgers playoff game ever. After that, he tears his ACL in the first part of 2022. He misses half of that year, and he really hasn't been the same. He was okay in 23, had 9 sacks that year, 7.5 sacks last year. He was a Pro Bowler, in quotes, last year. This year, we all thought with the addition of Parsons, all of the attention that he was going to garner, that would free up Gary. He'd be one-on-one. And what's odd is the first part of this year, that really came to be. That idea of adding a guy like Micah Parsons is going to make Rashawn Gary even better. It's going to make his life easier. And in the first 5 games, he had 7.5 sacks. I mean, it really looked like any idea that we had heading into the year of how much better Gary was going to be just because of Micah Parsons occupying a ton of attention, that looked like it was coming to fruition. I mean, he had 7.5 sacks in 5 games. He has not had a sack since. He has not had a tackle for loss in 9 weeks. And it just looks like his energy level is in the tank. I think he's trying. I think he's trying to have an impact on a game. The few times he's able to actually get pressure on a quarterback, I don't even care if it's Kirk Cousins in the pocket. They seem to be able to run around and evade him. He just doesn't have the closing speed anymore. And I do wonder, I think it's over for him this year. I think it's over for him in Green Bay after this year. He'll sign somewhere because the Packers owe him $44 million. They're not going to have to pay all that out. I think they'll have to pay maybe 19 of that remaining contract out over the next 2 years. There is a part of me that wonders if Rashawn's going to find a team. I believe he probably will. He's still only 28 years old. And again, he's a guy with how many career sacks now? He's got 46.5 career sacks in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is his 7th year. So he's got some numbers. And again, he's before 30, even though he had the big injury. But with what we're seeing right now, and the tape we're seeing on Gary, and I think he was essentially benched in the second half of the game on Saturday, you do wonder what team in the offseason, when the Packers cut him to save money, what team in the offseason is going to look at the last 9 or 10 weeks of tape and think, we're going to throw money at this guy? Again, it's the NFL. Like a lot of things, there's a lack of impact rushers, there's a lack of impact running backs and quarterback. I mean, every level. So because he's done it to a somewhat successful degree in the past, I'm sure somebody's going to throw a 1-year contract, 1 year, $3 or $4 million probably at him with a lot of incentives. He'll find a home somewhere because he's not even 30 years old. He's not even going to be 29 years old until the end of next year. But you do wonder with what we're seeing on tape right now, how big the Rashawn Gary market is going to be once the Packers move on from him at the end of this year. But that's another name you'll hear called out specifically, and I think rightfully so. Again, I don't know that it's for lack of effort. I just don't think he's an effective rusher anymore at this stage of his career, especially when you take away a guy like Parsons on the other side. In terms of special teams, I guess not terrible on Saturday night. Not a lot of penalties. McManus was 1 for 1, 3 for 3 on extra points. He's been rock solid now for about 5 or 6 weeks in a row after that blip in the middle of the year. Packers didn't punt the ball again. They didn't punt the ball again. There have been 11 games in the NFL this year. 11. Where a team has not punted. The record of those teams in those games is 8-3. The Packers are 0-3. How, in the name of Zeus's butthole, in the words of the late, great Nick Cage, he's still alive, in the words of the great Nick Cage from The Rock, how in the name of Zeus's butthole is that possible? 11 games this year where a team has not punted. Every other team not named the Green Bay Packers has won every one of those games, and the Packers are 0-3. Did not punt on Saturday in a 41-24 loss. But yeah, you wanted the storyline to be keep the division hopes alive. Malik Willis, amazing. We can have more debates about Malik Willis and Jordan Love if they win that game. And there's a lot of stuff that can happen if you actually win that game. But the overwhelming storyline coming out of Saturday was what appeared to be a lack of effort defensively and just getting run over by a Ravens offensive line and an all-world running back. Even though they did not have their MVP-level quarterback out there, the Packers still had no answers for that Ravens running attack. So the Packers fall to 9-6-1. Now, here's how it sets up. They are locked in now to the 7 seed. So third straight year that they are the 7 seed. And I know we talked about that in the last podcast. If there were 5 years ago when there wasn't a 7 seed, we'd be talking about a 4 or 5 year playoff drought now for Love and LaFleur and blah, blah, blah. So they are the 7 seed again. And now after yesterday's games, we can take a lap through the NFL real quick here. There wasn't a ton. There were so many games during the week. So we had my Texans stayed alive. Unfortunately, Jacksonville won. And now Jacksonville has Tennessee, a 3-win Titan team, a 3-win Titan team at home the final week of the regular season. I do not think Jacksonville's going to lose that game. So our bet on the Texans to win the AFC South is likely dead. However, the Texans beating the Chargers on Saturday means the Broncos are the AFC West champions. So we do cash that ticket. So every Broncos ticket, the over on 9.5 wins, the to make the playoffs bet, and the AFC West champions bet, those all cash. 3 for 3 on Denver this year as the Texans beat the Chargers 20-16 on Saturday. But yeah, Texans still a game back. Now, if the Texans win and somehow the Jaguars lose that game at home to Tennessee, then the Texans bet would hit, but it feels very unlikely at this point. Bengals all over the Cardinals 37-14. Browns beat the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers just wanted to have a spicy final regular season matchup this year. So the Steelers were a win, and they are the AFC North champions, or a Ravens loss, and they're the AFC North champions. I did see a lot of Steelers fans on Twitter bemoaning the fact that they did a favor for the Packers by beating the Lions, and then the Packers could not return the favor, because if the Packers would have beaten the Ravens Saturday night, the Steelers would have been the AFC North champions, and that game in Cleveland wouldn't have meant anything. So I did see some of that discourse on Twitter of, we did you a favor, you couldn't do us a favor. So the Browns notched their 4th win of the year. They beat Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. I think Rodgers was intercepted on a 4th and goal on a potential game-tying touchdown late in that one. Browns win 13-6. So now the Steelers and Ravens, 1-game regular season finale. The winner of that game will win the AFC North. Saints over the Titans 34-26. Like I said, Jaguars beat Rivers and the Colts. I thought Phillip Rivers would get 1 win in this return. It does not sound like he is going to start the final game of the regular season. So he got 3 starts at 44 years old. They had a lead, but then it was the Jaguars able to close the game 23-17. The Jaguars now 12-4 on the year. Dolphins beat the Buccaneers 20-17, but because the Panthers lose, the Buccaneers at 7-9 are going to host the 8-8 Panthers in the finale next week, and the winner of that game is going to win the division. And if the Buccaneers win that game, the winner of the NFC South will finish 8-9 and will have a home playoff game in the opening round. Disgusting. Dolphins win that 20-17. Patriots over the Jets 42-10, but the bigger thing in the AFC East for us was Eagles beat the Bills 13-12. Bills missed an extra point on their first touchdown of the game, so that kept it 13-6 instead of 13-7. And then the Bills score a touchdown late. They go for 2. Josh Allen, God bless him, I love him for the MVP bet last year and all the other things we've won with the Bills. Josh Allen missed the open receiver, I think it was Shakir, on the 2-point conversion to win that game by a country mile. And he was wide open, just a bit outside. So with that missed 2-point conversion, the Bills fall 13-12. That means our AFC East bet on the Bills, the bet a lot to win a little bet, that one loses a lot and does not win a little. So they're officially out. Patriots are the AFC East champions. Eagles won that game 13-12. Seahawks over the Panthers. That sets up that Panthers-Buccaneers matchup, 27-10 final there. And then as we went over, a wildly entertaining game between Chicago and San Francisco last night. Niners hang on 42-38. Caleb Williams had a shot. 1 play left inside the Niner 5-yard line. Pass fell a little short, so the Niners get the win. That means the Niners and Seahawks matchup, the last game of the regular season, the winner of that game, I believe, is going to be the 1 seed, right? And they're going to win the NFC West. We have the future on the Niners to win the NFC West. That is alive. And if they win this game against Seattle, that will be a 2-1 hit for us for the regular season finale. So now this is how it sets up. Saturday, we get Panthers-Buccaneers in the afternoon for the NFC South Championship. And then 7 o'clock Saturday night, we get Seahawks-Niners for the NFC West Championship. Now, the Packers play the Vikings. That time is set at noon on Sunday in Minnesota. It doesn't mean anything, so win or lose, whatever. Packers either get to 10-6-1 or they end the year 9-7-1, but they are locked into the 7 seed. The only 2 places the Packers can go for the first round are Philadelphia or Chicago. If the Bears win, now the Bears host the Lions. That is a 325 game. If the Bears win, they are the 2 seed, and the Packers will be on their way to Chicago. If the Bears lose and Philadelphia wins, then the Eagles become the 2 seed, the Bears fall to the 3 seed, and the Packers will head to Philly. If the Bears lose and the Eagles lose, Packers go to Chicago because the Bears have the tiebreaker with Philadelphia. So most roads seem to be that the Packers will be in Chicago for the opening round of the playoffs, but there is that chance if the Bears lose and the Eagles win, and they're at home against the Commanders who have nothing to play for, then you could be going to Philly for a second straight year wild card weekend. I want that Bears rematch so bad. I need it. With what has all happened this year, I need it. Now, the question for the Packers is this, and Matt LaFleur dodged most of these on Sunday. I assume he's going to do that for most of the week. What do you do in this last game? Like we talked about, injuries have been a huge subplot this year. Some would say it's the main plot when you factor in the names that are hurt, that are out for the year for the Packers. Regardless of where this year ends, if they lose to Minnesota and then lose in the opening round of the playoffs, wherever they go, Chicago or Philly, and their season comes to an end, there are going to be decisions to be made about Matt LaFleur, about Brian Gutekunst, whatever. But injuries are going to have to be a part of that conversation because of the magnitude of the guys that went down. But with this last game, you've got nothing to play for. We saw what happened last year. They had nothing to play for in the regular season finale against the Bears at Lambeau Field. They played their guys, and what happened? Christian Watson tore his ACL. Eventually, they lifted Jordan Love out of that game, but you did see some guys go down that year. You already have a laundry list of injuries. I guess my feeling is, I get it. They've lost 3 games in a row. The vibes are bad. You kind of want them to play their guys on Sunday just to get some positivity heading into a playoff game. But I guess at the end of the day, my feeling is right now on Monday, and we'll see if we know anything more by Friday. But my feeling is right now, discretion is the better part of valor. Injuries for all of the names that have gone down have pockmarked the entire year. There's nothing good that can come, really, of playing those guys and throwing them out for an injury risk, the regular season finale, in a game that just doesn't matter. I know you're going to have the argument of if Jordan Love comes out of concussion protocol, which, by the way, is not a guarantee. He is not out of concussion protocol yet. Assuming he is out of concussion protocol and could play this weekend, I understand the argument of he has not played since the second quarter of the Bears game. Maybe you want to knock some rust off and get him back in a rhythm before a playoff game. This is year 3 of Love. I guess if it's 2023 and it's his first year as a starter and we're in the same scenario, I kind of see that argument more. I don't know that in year 3 of being a starter that is as big of a factor. With the way things have gone this year, I don't see the reward of knocking rust off as bigger than the risk of seeing even more guys go down before a playoff game. Now, the spread on this game is Vikings -7. That leads me to believe that Vegas thinks that the Packers are going to start Clayton Tune at quarterback on Sunday, which is entirely possible. Now, if Jordan Love gets out of concussion protocol, which, again, not guaranteed, would you play him? Do you play Malik Willis? If Love is still down with the concussion, and we know Willis is dealing with the shoulder thing, maybe there's a world where Willis has to start a playoff game. Do you risk him if he's the guy on Sunday? Or do you just put your third stringer Clayton Tune out there and let him eat up the reps, run the ball a million times, whatever happens, shorten the game up and get out of there and get set for whatever the playoff matchup is? I think the spread on this game indicates that Vegas thinks the Packers are going to start Clayton Tune, they're going to rest their guys, and get set for whatever playoff destination is coming up next week, whether that's in Chicago or in Philadelphia. But it is Packers and Vikings in Minnesota, a noon kickoff coming up on Sunday. Now, let's talk real quick about the Bucs and maybe a little college football playoffs here. So the Bucs saw the return of Giannis on Saturday. That was a surprise. As we talked about on Friday, it kind of felt like we were still a few weeks away. Well, all of a sudden, he was questionable when the first injury report came out for the Bulls game Saturday afternoon. That got Bucs Twitter going. That got the eyes emojis from all the Bucs fans on Twitter. Oh, maybe he's coming back, and he did. And let me tell you something. For all of the things that have gone wrong this year for this version of this Bucs team, having a Giannis is so much more fun than not having a Giannis. I mean, you saw it from the first 3 minutes of the game, the impact that he brings. I mean, we know he's an MVP. He's a top 25, top 30 all-time player already, and he's only 31 years old. But when you don't have him, and this is his second injury stint of the year already, when you don't have him for a lot of games, when you get a guy like that back, I turned the game on, and it was on at the same time as the Packer-Raven game. So I had the Packer game on, I was watching the Bucs game on the iPad, so I'm kind of glancing down, and the first 4 or 5 minutes of that game was just a breath of pure oxygen. I mean, it was just like, oh my God, this is so much better. This is so much better. And he had a great game, 29 points in just 25 minutes, 10 of 15 shooting, 8 rebounds, an assist, a steal, a block. Everybody's playing better around him. Ryan Rollins had 20. Kevin Porter Jr., not a great shooting night, had 8 points. Miles Turner had 13, 17, and 11 from Bobby off the bench, who has been playing better, I have to admit. And the Bucs get a 112-103 win. As we talked about on Friday, the Bulls are one of those teams that are directly in front of the Bucs in the play-in tournament conversation. That was one you kind of felt like you had to get Saturday, and they did. Final score 112-103. Bucs get to 13-19 on the year. Now, the story coming out of the game, on the final Bulls possession, so it was 110-103. The final seconds are ticking away. The Bulls miss a jumper. Giannis grabs the rebound, slowly starts to walk up court, takes a look at the clock, and then all of a sudden, a burst of speed, showtime, windmill dunk for the exclamation point to make it 112-103. Now, much like the unwritten rules of baseball, and we hear unwritten rules referenced much more in baseball than we do in the NBA, but there are unwritten rules in every sport, and roll your eyes, I just did. You can roll them too. Every sport has them, and one of the unwritten rules in the NBA is when you're up 110-103 with 5 seconds on the clock and you have the ball, just dribble it out. Just dribble it out. That's the gentlemanly thing to do. But Giannis decided to put a little stank on it with the dunk, and then as soon as he walks back up court, Vucevic for the Bulls and Kobe White for the Bulls, the entire Bulls team starts getting in Giannis's face. And then you know who the first guy for the Bucs? Bobby Portis. He's right in the mix. Say what you want about Bobby's defense and his rebounding and the fact that he goes brain dead every game, it feels like, for a couple of possessions. But when you're in the trenches, Bobby is a trench guy. Bobby is an in-the-trenches guy. That's a guy you want in your trench. And he was out there in a split second defending Giannis, shoving Kobe White. No suspensions have been handed out, but then both teams kind of start jawing back and forth in those final moments as Giannis put that dunk on at the end of the game. So they asked Giannis about it in the postgame, and Giannis, this is a little hard to hear. He's always a little tough to understand. But he talked about how this team right now is, and you'll hear him say, are we 11th in the East? Are we 12th in the East? And this 1 minute of Giannis kind of with a villain turn here, it kind of got me going a little bit.
Dunk there at the end is not something we've seen you. Maybe what's your thought process there? The dunk to end it.
We're 11th in the East.
Say again.
Are we 11th in the East or 12th?
11th.
11. Yeah, just got to keep finding our identity. And if that is to, get a little bit of, scrappy at the end, so be it. We're not the champs. Why should we have, play the clock out and have respect and fair play? We're fighting for our lives right now. This is real talk. I've been 13 years in the league. If we keep on losing, brother, there's probably half of the team not going to be here. We're not going to make the playoffs. I really don't care. At the end of the day, I just want to be available, be healthy, and have my team win. And if that's what has to happen for everybody to wake up and understand, we fight for our lives and we got to get our hands dirty, so be it.
I love it. I'm back. This has been such a meandering Bucks year. And it's mostly been defined by Giannis rumors, some made up, and maybe some have some truth. That's been the biggest subplot. The Miles Turner thing hasn't worked out the way we wanted it to. Giannis has been hurt. They're under 500. Can they even make the playoffs this year? There's been so much negativity and downers and bummers as it relates to this team. But now Giannis is back, and he puts up a big night, and he does something a little out of character for him at the end of that game. It leads to a little scuffle between the Bulls and Bucks. And then he delivers that interview and says, look, we're not a champion. We're not a top-tier team. We're fighting for our lives. And I think he's right when he says he might be a part of it. When he says, brother, if we don't finish in the playoffs, half this team isn't going to be here next year. And that may well include him. And that could also be a message from him to his teammates if he is going to stay, where he's saying, look, if we don't get this turned around, half of you guys are going to be gone, and I'm probably going to make it happen. But I with a little edge there at the end, let's get our hands dirty, let's battle, we're fighting for our lives every night. It's just a little bit of a heel turn for Giannis, and I think it's exactly what this team needs. I don't know that it's going to fix all their problems. It was a great win to get on Saturday. They are in Charlotte tonight. This is a winnable game, and Giannis is not even on the injury report for tonight's game. So it sounds like he's good to go for tonight. If you win this game, it's a 3-2 5-game road trip, which is not terrible. And then you've got a couple of very winnable games at home where you could get yourself close to 500. So there is a path here to getting back close to 500 and getting more relevant in the Eastern Conference playoff picture. But even if that does not spur them on, I just think it's not a last-ditch effort, but it's something that Giannis doesn't typically do, where he is looking around the room and he sees the record and they're underachieving, and maybe this isn't the best version of this team around him, but he's saying, I've got to do something different. I've got to bring some edge. I've got to light a fire, and it looked like he did that on Saturday, not only with the way he handled that last play, but in the post-game interview as well, and I'm here for it. I watched that minute-long sit-down that we just played you. And even though this team is 13-19, and maybe it means nothing in the long run, and they lose their next 3 of their next 4 games, and it's a dead-in-the-water season, and then the biggest thing again becomes whether or not Giannis is staying or leaving, even if that's how it goes, that got me going. That got me kind of reinvested in this year. That's the most optimistic I've felt about this team since their 4-1 start, was the way they won that game, the way Giannis threw that dunk down, the jawing back and forth, and then that post-game interview. That is as good as I felt since they won 4 of their first 5, and it kind of felt like things were going in the right direction. Since then, the whole season's gone sideways, but maybe that does spin them back in the correct direction moving forward. I loved it. So the Bucks are in Charlotte tonight, a 6 o'clock tip time, and then they come home with the Wizards, right? So they're 13-19. We got a ways to go. I mean, you got a long way to go. In Charlotte tonight, then you're home with the Wizards New Year's Eve. Gotta win that one. I mean, you can't lose a second game to the Wizards. Then you're home with Charlotte on Friday. If you can win these next 3 and you get back to 16-19 before the West Coast trip, I mean, with Giannis back now, that West Coast trip at Sacramento, at Golden State, at LA, at Denver, I think with Giannis, you could maybe go 2-2 there. I think you can get 1. I mean, before Giannis came back, I felt like they weren't going to win a game on that West Coast trip. I think you can maybe get 1 or 2 now and just kind of keep yourself around 500. But these next 3 games are critical. You've got to really win all 3. Tonight at Charlotte, home Wednesday, Washington, home Friday with Charlotte. But they are on the floor, 6 o'clock tip time tonight. And then real quick, because we won't have a podcast until Friday, the college football playoffs resume on Wednesday. So it's Miami, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas Tech, Alabama, Indiana, and Ole Miss, Georgia. Here's who I've got. I've got Ohio State to win the whole thing, so of course I'm picking them over Miami. I am going to take Oregon over Texas Tech. That's a 5-4, a mild upset, and even by the gambling odds, Oregon is a 2.5-point favorite there. These are not official picks, by the way. But this is just how I'll pick in winners. I think Ohio State over Miami, Oregon over Texas Tech. I'm going to take Indiana over Alabama, but I could see Alabama covering that 7-point spread. I could see that game being very close. Feels like Alabama's playing their best football of the year. Now, Indiana, undefeated, beat Ohio State in the Big Ten title game. They're the favorites for a reason, but I could see Alabama covering there. And then I'm going to take Georgia over Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss got the one win against Tulane in the aftermath of the whole Lane Kiffin debacle. That's all well and good. I do not see those vibes carrying over to beating what I think is a legit title contender. And it could end up being Georgia, Ohio State in the national title game. I do not think they're beating Georgia. So I have got Oregon, Indiana, Georgia, and Ohio State moving on between Wednesday and Thursday in the college football playoffs. All right, that'll do it for us here. We will get back after it on Friday. Set up Packers-Vikings. Maybe we'll know more by then about whether or not Love is out of concussion protocol, whether or not there's any idea that they're going to play some of these starters or not. We'll discuss that on Friday. We'll recap the Bucs week as well and get you set for another fun weekend in NFL football. One weekend from the playoffs. Have a happy, safe week. We'll chat with you then.